Okay, so now we have we are going to talk about the AI Act from the European Union. So it will be the idea is to demystify it, to see a bit the challenges and the opportunities around it, because everyone is talking about it. Most of the people are saying good or bad things. It's very black and white, the debate around it. But most of the people are talking without knowing really what it is exactly, without having read it or anything. And of course, it's important for everyone that is working in AI or is interested by AI. It's an important subject. So we are going to have a short introduction, then see what it is exactly, and especially the risk classification. So I will explain, and the key rules that are associated to the different risks. And then a quick timeline and a conclusion. So I already introduced myself, so I will skip this one. A good analogy I find for the AI in general sector and the regulation is that innovation, so it's like a rocket. Too much fuel and it will explode, but too much regulation also and it will never take off. So the key challenge here is to find the good balance. So what is exactly the AI Act? So it's the world's first comprehensive AI regulation. Its purpose initially and still now is to build AI that is safe, ethical, and trustworthy. It's still a work in progress. It's already implemented and officially implemented by the Commission since last summer, but it's still a work in progress because a lot of the points on the articles are still a bit abstract, a bit broad. And it's because you have people working right now, and it will continue for a few years, on defining some guidelines on good practices for the different points. So it's not everything yet done, and some things might change even, like for example, you have discussion with countries like Sweden or France that are pushing to modify a few articles. And what most of the people that are against it, most of the time they talk mainly about one part of it, which is about general purpose AI. This is a term in the Act, but what they are saying by it, it's mainly they are focusing on generative AI, on AI that are big models. And those articles that are included in the AI Act were a bit less like a last-minute addition to the law, because it was in discussion for several years in Europe, in the Commission. And it happened 2 or 3 years ago when ChatGPT arrived. They tried to add it a bit as a last-minute thing. So it might have been done a bit as a last-minute thing, not very perfectly, and maybe a bit too soon. But so most of the time, when people comply about it, it's mostly big companies, Google and everything, some European companies, but it's mostly about this last part. So why it matters? So you have several things, but it's Europe's attempt to be one of the leaders in ethical or responsible AI. And of course, there are tensions between regulation and competitiveness, and especially in the world right now where we are in competition. Europe is in competition with China and also USA. And I just want to add on USA that because most of the time, and especially since Trump arrived as a president, people are saying you have no regulation at all in AI in USA, which is totally wrong. Yet, for sure, Trump removed some of the regulation at the federal level, but you still have a lot because you have, for example, in the cybersecurity law, in the military laws, in health, those kind of things, you will have articles related to AI. So you still have some federal regulation at the federal level. You still have some regulation for AI, and then at the state levels. So, for example, in California or in Colorado, you have laws that are regulating AIs, and you have other states working on it. It's basically laws that apply to everyone, every companies that are either European companies or companies that want to address the European market. And when we say company, the way it's defined in the text, it's in several categories. You have the providers, that are the people creating and marketing the models on their own brand. You have the deployers, that are people that are taking those models on the integrating in their own offers. Importers, that are companies importing a model from other company in the union market, and distributors, that are European companies that are importing models from outside of Europe. So all those companies are subject to the law. You still have some exceptions. The main ones are for R&D, so if you have a model or you are doing R&D, the law does not apply to you. Of course, when it will be in production, it will apply, but not while you are in R&D. And it's the same for open source and open research. It's much less. You have much less constraints, so you can. It's much more easy to innovate if you are open source. Yeah.
Sorry, deployer means, for example, if a company uses OpenAI API.
Yeah, it's one example. And it's integrating its own. It's in on offer. Yeah. And also, of course, for military and defense, you don't have more or less no restriction. Yeah.
So when it has open source, does that mean no monetization, like free? So it has to be free and open source. But if it's open source but has some sort of paid model, you can capture it under the regulation.
It's if you are using an open source model and you made it as on your own, as you were saying, as your own. I don't know, offer with indeed you will be on the regulation, but at least on the construction of model and everything, it's not on the research, more the research part, let's say, it does not apply.
Or the DeepSeek R1 model now, if you use that, you don't have to comply to any regulations because it's open source.
It depends how you use it. It's not, but no, the idea is that to build the model, the regulation does not apply. But if you are using DeepSeek integrated in your offer that you did with other things and all your IT system, your software, there on you are have a paid service on everything, the regulation can apply. Yeah. So the main part about to know if the regulation will apply or not, it's what they call the risk categories. So depending of your level of risk, you will have more or less regulation. So the lower one, where you have no regulation, it's for minimal risk AI. So it's, for example, in entertainment or trivial, non very intelligent, like let's say the old kind of style of bots, and not chatbots, not ChatGPT. Sorry. The second one, where you have a lighter regulation, is for limited risk AI, where, for example, for recommendation engines that are already existing for a long time on Netflix or on Amazon, those kind of things, where they will recommend you the next movie or the best article, and where you have a lot of regulation, a lot, kind of, because it's not as crazy as you think. You will see after, but it's models that are considered more dangerous. So, for example, it can happen in healthcare, recruitment, and those kind of sectors. We will see the details just after. And the last one is what is prohibited, so where it's unacceptable, the level of risk. And you have manipulative systems or social scoring, those kind of things. Social scoring, which is, for example, what is happening in China with people that are getting a score depending on how they behave in life. and can access to some things related to that or not. And as I said, they added a bit at the last minute, so it's on the side kind of. The part about general purpose AI, which has these specific regulations. So on the top part, we had the forbidden practices. So let's see what is it exactly. So you have all models of AI that are harmful, that are doing harmful manipulation on deceptions, or harmful exploitation of vulnerabilities in people, in groups of people. Social scoring, crime prediction through profiling, mass facial recognition scraping, so scraping of data of people, facial data of people to do some facial recognition, emotion detection in the workplace, sensitive biometrics categorization, as well as real-time public biometric identifications.
Yeah. This mass facial recognition scraping, are we talking about, for example, we go to on the Facebook or Instagram for the public profiles, we are not allowed to do this
if it's
even if it is public?
Even if it is public, it's Okay. Then so you had the forbidden one. Just below you have high risk. So you have two ways to be classified as high risk. The first one is if you meet both of the next 2 points. The first one being you have a sensitive safety critical role. That can be achieved to either the AI part of the product is the safety component of the product, or the AI part is integrated in a product. When I say product, can be software or a physical product that already has some safety regulation by the European Union. So, for example, in civil aviation, medical devices, those kind of sectors. And as well as this first point, the second point is you already also have some regulation on obligation of doing assessment by third party to see if you comply with safety regulation and standards. So if the AI you are integrating in your final product is meets those both terms, you are considered high risk. The second one is if you are part of some categories. So you have non-band biometrics, critical infrastructure, so for energy, those kind of things, education and training, which is employment and worker management, access to benefit of essential services, can be public or private, for example, insurances, private insurances, law enforcement, migration, asylum and border control, as well as justice and democratic processes. Yeah?
Well, a lot of those make a lot of sense to me, but when he says education and training, so is that training as in like...
If you are using the AI to train people, I'm not saying like recommending new trainings to do or whatever. It's more like the teacher is the AI.
Yes, I've seen a lot.
For example, it will be considered high risk.
Okay.
It does not mean it's forbidden. Huh? It's just that it's
because that's becoming more and more common.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. In a lot of things in the company, a lot of the HR and the trainings are using more and more AI. But the thing is, the intended point here is that AI can manipulate easily. And so if you are using it in training, it's how people learn. They are learning directly manipulated things. And when I say manipulate, it's not intentionally. It can be totally. No.
If we are talking,
about,
for example, these tools are an extension for the professor. Like, let's see, this is an assistant for the professor that terms of recommendation. Is this still a high risk tool?
It's considered high risk because of the sector, but it's already meeting that we will see just after the points to make. One part I am going a bit. It's one point after, but one point it's to have someone that is being able to oversee it. So in this case, it's okay. But yeah.
So it's just it's from an ethical point of view. That's why it's high risk.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you still have a few exceptions, but we won't go into the details here. Let's do quickly a little quiz. If, for example, we had an AI that is diagnosis diseases for you, in which category it will end up between those four categories here?
Also high risk.
High risk?
Diagnosing diseases?
Yeah. So you have two high risk here? High risk? Okay. I guess it's going more to high risk on you.
However, we as humanity, we managed to make a vaccine based on AI, and it actually worked.
It's yeah, but once again, it's high risk is not forbidden. Huh? It's different concept. Huh? It's just that you need to have some security things. Okay, we'll see it just after. So I'm going to skip it for now. If you are recommending pizza toppings for you, which category?
Minimal risk.
High risk. Okay.
Depends on the pizza.
You need peanuts. I'm allergic to peanuts.
It's high risk. I might go with high risk too.
Yeah,
Wow.
good point.
Minimal risk.
It's minimal, yeah. And deciding you, job promotion, it's okay?
It's running out of energy. I don't know if it's a projector or you
Yeah, I'm good, I guess.
Yeah.
Is it not plugged in?
Okay. I'm going to continue before it stops. Okay, no. No, it's not plugged in, I think. Oh, no, it is, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Who and how do they control it? If you have a small company and if you comply to these?
Yeah. So for now, they are not controlling yet, but it will be for the countries to control it. So not at the European Union, but by countries. So same that it's done for RGPD. And you will have, I guess, it's mostly the big companies that are going to be controlled, or some very specific, like a startup like Mistral in France. I'm sure they will be controlled, but some very specific big companies.
And the companies, they need to have, I don't know, their headquarters in the European Union, or if they operate in the European country.
If they operate,
outside, I don't know.
if they are from outside of Europe and they are operating in Europe, either they have an office here that is European headquarters that will be responsible for that, or they will need to have a local partner that will just do the representation for this.
They probably use AI to control it.
Do they have like a revenue threshold before you get captured into it, or is it at any?
It's not about revenue. They don't say it, but at least it's not what they say. But I'm sure they won't target very small companies. But yeah. But it's not, they don't say anything. But I think it will be also, as it will be controlled by the different countries. For example, we can see right now with RGPD, Ireland is much more light than France or Germany, because they have all the European techs of the big American companies, so they are trying to be a bit less bothering, let's say it like that. So you will have, I'm sure, a different level of controlling depending on the countries.
I'm not sure if it is the right place to ask you. What is the relation between GDPR and this AI risk score that we are talking about?
The relationship, it's a bit different. Like GDPR, it's only about the data that you are collecting and everything. here it's more about how you have a part where which is about how you could use this data, but after it's more related to the model in itself.
So it's related to the use of the outputs of the AI.
Yeah, it's like,
let's say
yeah, the idea is to try to minimize the risk of bias and those kind of things, of security, and yeah.
Oh, it reminded me of something. I remember someone were limited by GDPR because they had like these vending machines, and with camera that would like collect the data. Like they had a video feed collecting the data of the customers that were buying to get like market data. But that is prohibited because they couldn't say person identified data through GDPR. And what they did was they applied an AI and a live feed that didn't save any data, but it had an AI that interpreted what it saw, and it saved those keywords to another database and used that as data. So it was like a workaround. With this prohibit, that
save the metadata, not the
yeah, they say just the information and not the actual footage, or like so the people weren't.
Arguably, that's still covered by GDPR because whether it's processed is still data still belongs to the person it's being captured now.
But it's used nowadays. This technique is
it's only less than 9 remaining.
automatic search.
And it's
search
going to
tool.
be fast.
For example, if we start speaking too much about something that we usually don't use, in places like social media, we might have advertisements based on what we said, not even if we have that or not. So it's capturing our information in one way or another.
Agreed, but it's still covered by GDPR.
It was like if you have a guy watching.
Okay, just guys, I propose that we go on with the talk because we don't know if this is going to stop or not, and we can have those discussions after.
That's my fault.
No. So the main rules for high-risk AI, what they need to comply with, basically. So they need to have a risk management system that is not yet clearly defined what are the best practice for that yet. It's a work in progress. Data governance, a technical documentation of the model, automatic event logging, but also the most important part is to keep those logs as long as the model is running, so to store it. Some transparency towards the deployers, so people that are going to integrate your models for the companies where it's relevant. As we were saying, human oversight, some kind of human oversight in the process. That is possible, at least.
That means that, for example, the AI algorithm should not be like black box, right?
The black box, it's even something different, but let's like you are relating black box to which of my points? Sorry.
When you talk about human oversight,
yeah.
it's
No.
like
Okay.
to understand how the outputs were calculated. To understand.
No. It's more about saying, I know if the AI is recommending something, the AI can validate or not. For example, it does not need to understand. You just need to say this is not relevant or whatever.
Okay.
Some accuracy on the robustness and cybersecurity measures. So all of this, it's the same. We don't know yet exactly what it will be. The process is mandatory, but it's a work in progress. Sorry. And based on all of that, you will have to document it to be able, if you are asked by control by the Commission or by your country, to present the proofs.
Could be one rule for high-risk AI explainable AI?
It's not a rule now to be explainable, but at least not for risk. For the general purpose model, so when we talk about ChatGPT, Gemini, and Grok, and those kind of models, they will need to maintain and update the documentation, technical documentation, which I guess they are already doing normally. Provide up-to-date documentation to the providers also, so to people integrating it. This is a bit more tricky. They will need to comply with EU law on copyright. And the tricky part is, of course, that the model needs a lot of data to be trained on. So they get the data everywhere on the web, a lot of time without complying with copyright laws. They will need to publish a detailed summary of the training process. And another subcategory of it is if they are considered as potential to have potential systemic risk. So it's more a question of power of the model, like of number of parameters, of size of the model, which the thresholds are not yet defined, but it will be. And you have debates around countries and people in Europe about it. They will have to have a more detailed technical documentation to conduct evaluation of the model. You had a question? Yeah?
What if we use AI to produce the documentation?
Nothing is. I guess as long as it's true, if you have a control, nothing is. Yeah. Yeah, models evaluations, which once again normally they are all already doing. And to have some things to mitigate the risk that we don't know yet exactly what it will be in a detailed way, at least. And to track and report, if needed, the incidents that are happening. To report to the commission. So if you have, for example, your AI, you're starting to insult people or to discriminate a kind of group of people, it will need to be reported. With, of course, your plans of action to solve it.
Just a question. Is these rules already in place? Or
No, not yet soon. It's actually one of the slides after. Yeah, on cybersecurity protection measures also. So now that we have seen all of this, do you think HAL 9000 from 2001, A Space Odyssey, will comply with the actual AI Act? No? Yeah.
Because it was designed and it worked before.
Yeah, for sure.
Into place.
It was just, so yes, indeed, no. For a lot of things, I did not put everything, but some of them are relating to the human oversight, to prohibited practices, to the risk management and all those kinds of things. You have much more. You have actually people that really did big articles about all the things that is not respecting.
But can we make sure we will never reach that point?
No, it's not.
It's like Skynet. Can we make sure we don't reach Skynet?
It's a philosophical question. Yeah, it's not. So, as a company, as people working in AI, the first things to do is to determine the category of risk you are in, to know what you have to what strategies you have to implement, then document it, and then you can be prepared for potential audits. And to answer, yeah, and of course, the sooner you start to implement the good practices from the development point of view, the easier it will be, of course. And to answer the question about the timeline, so for now, only two things are enforced. So the first one is the obligation of AI literacy for the companies. So all people in companies that are working with AI can be technical people, developers, software engineers, but also people using AI in the their day-to-day job, either for customer or internally, must have the sufficient level of training on it. So to understand at least the technical limits, the potential bias and those kind of things, to know how to use it. So this is already mandatory since beginning of February. And the other part is prohibited practices that is also implemented. And what is coming next, so in August of this year, you will have the obligation for general models and penalties and fines also that will be set up. Yeah.
How serious are they? Or how, like, what is the fine? Just like, is it super?
It's supposedly you have different one, but you have minimum threshold in millions of euros. But after it's a question of the bigger the company, the bigger the fine.
But that's not the good news. Well, I'm saying this because because
Yeah.
I'm responsible for the AI. So I'm the DPO. So
Okay,
we
yeah.
need to accomplish with a lot of laws regarding the data. Meaning that we are very restrict to use the data in the way that we need for our business proposal.
Yeah.
That means we are still losing the battle for the other countries that can use the data
More freely.
in the way that they need. I see that we are making a lot of restrictions, a lot of barriers, a lot of stuff for the innovations, and we are regulating something that we don't have, and we will not have.
Is that the opportunity part? Is it going to show us that?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure because I see, as far as I see from the reports that I read from, I believe, from Draghi, the GDPR was the same that applied 100%, 125% of taxes in the companies, right? Because we didn't evolve, we didn't make any move forward. We are still stuck. That we are like in same position from 6, 7, 8 years ago, right? Because we have a lot of restrictions, we have a lot of stuff.
That's why Europe is there where it is.
Yeah. Can you want to?
That's called civilization.
I'm not sure.
It's not a wild west.
No, but I'm not saying this is a wild west, but I believe that the rule of innovation is to have to give freedom for the companies, for the people to innovate. If we are regulating, that means we are just putting the people just in another direction, and we are restrict the innovation. And this is why it comes the AI from US.
Yeah.
Because they don't have regulations.
China
More or less.
produces better
I
AI.
have a question.
Yeah.
So I couldn't agree more, and this also reflected by an experience that companies were already not able to handle their data using them. And GDPR came and all this. It's just unrealistic. They can't handle it. So my question, has ever anyone from the government talked to the companies?
No.
Yeah. For the AI, you mean?
The people behind the desk don't care about, don't see they only see the big picture, not the big picture of the now and not the big picture of the future. Like, how is it now? What do we want to prevent now? Not how are we going to be in 50 years?
It's a little bit different.
There's nothing to prevent it. The companies, they're just not able to keep up. They will not apply AI models because they can't. And they will fall behind. And in a few years from now, companies will be gone.
While laws are being written for yesterday's problems, and they will start acting tomorrow.
Yeah. But I feel that we are regulating something that the problem that does not exist today. That they suppose that will exist, so let's regulate it.
At least you have survived GDPR, which means GDPR office and set up all the protocols for compliance.
Can we imagine
highly likely you will make it through AI Act.
Can you imagine how many papers, documents, and stuff that are not related to the business that I need to handle every day?
I can approximate.
It's not a high risk area for AI.
Yeah.
You could generate it.
I have a quick question. I'm from North America, so I came to see what AI was like here in Europe, and so we do keep it as a mean that Europe is usually the slowest behind everything. But I was curious, is there a discussion with this particular law, with, for example, with the lack of, I guess with the amount of law, you obviously can restrict innovation, but also lose productivity, because AI has, in the workplace, for example, in North America, helped increase productivity. So is that a discussion around this particular law, the ability to fall further behind in productivity in the use cases when it comes to AI?
I think it's it's an open debate, but it's a bit it's in my conclusion, but I think one of the key parts, you have two different things. You have the research in AI, which for me we can easily catch up, but not as Europe, more as using I think the strategy here should be more about open source, and especially as we have seen that it's much less regulated, and we have seen it with DeepSeek in China. you can copy and improve things that are already existing for cheaper using open source, the open source community. And after you have AI that is applied by companies for real usage, I will say. Yeah, sorry.
I'm just wondering, like, does the regulations follow like any mechanisms that are pro-innovation in a sense? Like, for example, the patent system makes it so that you can protect your intellectual property, but it also forces you to open source your technology. So you give the information to everyone, but you get to keep protect. So like it contributes to innovation at the same time as it is.
Yeah, I agree. For me, it's like on the innovation part, constraints can also bring innovation. You know, you need to think outside of the box and differently, so you can force kind of innovation. And I lost my thought of mine, but sorry. Yeah.
Is there any way we can like provide outside box or a closed box to the AI and say, now you have this amount of resources, and we mock them and say, now run free and let's test it out. No, it's a mock, it's closed, it is on that system disconnected from the web. We run it and we let it run, and in the end we see is it good, is it bad, and if it's good we proceed with it, and if it's bad we just erase everything and restart. Is there a way we can do that? Is it ethical? Because I'm thinking like this discussion in we are blocking our evolution. They have more freedom to explore it. So is there a way we can like simulate a free system?
But okay.
Yeah, sorry. I think University in California did that in Minecraft. They sandboxed the virtual world and let the AI run.
Not my point. My point was like the company wants to grow. Here's the data. Use it as much as you want. No limitations.
Yeah, you can do it. It's called digital twin. You can do it.
Virtual.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
And it would not be captured by this kind of regulation?
Yeah.
It seems
If
like
it's
since you don't use it, you just keep it for yourself.
yeah, it's okay. Yeah, if you.
Okay.
But can I just make a point? We're talking about productivity. I really don't see what the difference in the US and Europe is, because the models that were developed in the US are available to be used and implemented in companies at the moment in Europe.
I would say the point is something that I think is that a lot of times when there's regulatory uncertainty, they won't develop certain features or certain products to Europe. I noticed that just recently that certain products have been not brought to Europe because
delayed.
Because of the uncertainty. So I don't know. They're not in here now.
But it really depends on what, because this act, as far as I understand, it doesn't forbid AI, and it puts some guardrails. Well, this does forbid some stuff, but it puts guardrails on how to use it, right? And when we look at what those guardrails are, and we look at the classification of low to high, when we look at productivity, as long as it doesn't fall in some of those groups, I don't see that there is a big issue.
Well, I think what I understand is that you put a regulatory burden on that company just to operate in the market. For example, my home country, Canada, back when Gemini was released, we were bringing AI laws. They just didn't give it, they just completely blocked it until there was more certainty. Obviously, later we got it, but I was curious to know if this kind of law creates that same kind of regulatory uncertainty for a company, and if they find it too burdensome, they may just ignore. But Europe's a big market, so maybe they wouldn't ignore it, but release it in a less capacity, reduced capacity. I don't know. Those are the kind of things I was curious about.
But I believe we are talking about two different things. Because we're talking about use the already existing tool that someone developed with no regulation or completely free. US case. The development and the use Europe. We are talking about European. We are just putting some guardrails on how to use. You can use like this, you can use like this, and so. And making these, let's say, barriers. I'm not able. I'm afraid to develop something new because the fines are too high. and there's a lot of limitation. And okay, I will not do this because I can have a huge fine in the future. That's the case today.
On this point, where I disagree is that we have seen the list of what is mandatory to do. So most of the things are basic stuff that all the AI companies are doing. Huh? It's not nothing revolutionary. Where it's adds some burden, I agree. It's that you have to document everything, and you need to be ready if you have audits and those kind of things. And the law might change, I don't know, and you have kind of some uncertainty. I agree. But on the things that you will need to do, it's nothing crazy. It's things that, like to do some tests of your models.
I agree.
It's
no,
like.
I agree. I'm not on the Wild West. I agree. I'm just saying that we are regulating too much, that we are strict English.
It's one of the. So I might not go with.
We lost the cloud computing battle for the US. We are losing the AI battle for the US. We will lose all the battles that we will face in the future because we are just regulating before the time. That's what I don't.
Just to shed some optimism.
And I think the biggest problem is young people that are ambitious and motivated want to build up AI startups.
They are moving
out of Europe
because it's in the US.
It's not a reason.
They are moving to the
but
US.
it's an issue.
I've been there. Working there.
Google
I know
Labs,
different.
Meta Labs, and all other big brands labs there. And there are many exciting results coming from Europe in the AI world.
It's not the European Union.
It's like
I live in Switzerland. It's
Switzerland is a little bit different.
Instead of deregulating, regulating something new.
No, it's not.
No.
Yeah.
Or just
When you
yeah.
have some regulation, when you have some guardrails, that means that we are biased for this and we are losing the disruption.
I'm going to just finish. It's. Excuse me, I'm just finishing quickly, and after we can all debate.
So move to Switzerland.
Good idea.
So for the iris part, I'm just going to say that it's going to be only on force starting in August 27, so it's not now. You have time. Things can change since. Yeah. Then you have some exception, but I won't go into the detail right now because we already talked a lot. My conclusion will be that it's more or less that what I already said, that constraint can bring innovation. We have seen it with DeepSeek. If we think outside of the box, of course you have challenges of compliance, cost, and a slower time maybe to innovation, the time because you need to document on those kind of things. But you have also opportunities. I think the main one for me is really to embrace open source research. Because when we are speaking about the rise of AI, we are speaking about the research part. We are not really speaking about the applicative part. And this, if we are open source, no problem. There is no issue at all. Huh? It just needs to be. I think Europe should focus on that rather than being like, oh, it's a war between Europe and China and USA. I think it should be a war between open source and closed source models. And we have seen it with open source. Chinese companies innovating on European and American innovations, and then the open source world taking the Chinese innovation and adding on it. So it's not anymore about the countries, and it's a bit more easy. But I think for the applicative part for the companies, you also have a question of building trust with your customers, and this can be if you are saying that you are enforcing the law. It's also a question of trust to your users. And I think us as users and people as users are afraid a bit of AI. Maybe not people that are here, but a lot of people. So in the end, if you build more trust, you might can have a small advantage. And that's it for me. Now we can.